Excellent. Okay, that was a bounce back. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Do we have some gentlemen in the room? The lights are blinding, so I can't really see very well. But thank you so much for joining us for this tough session, because everybody wanted to go get dolled up for the dinner this evening. But I want to point out that this is a very, very important session. Welcome to the BioAfrica's Rising Stars in Biotech 2023. Today, we are featuring the female rising stars. And just to give you a bit of context, the BioAfrica Rising Stars Plenary serves to profile young leaders who are rising stars in biotechnology. And the aim here is to showcase and amplify voices of emerging innovators, leaders, and industry enablers. And having read these women's profiles, I am quite inspired and challenged to action. And I believe that you hearing their stories will do the same for you. So I have an esteemed panel here of rising stars. And their stories will blow your mind. And I'm not joking about that. I'm not exaggerating at all. And you'll find out in a moment. So this panel features 3 young leaders under 45 from academia, research, startups, and industry enabling entities. These are trailblazers, these are innovators, these are leaders, these are the people who will transform the biotechnology innovation spheres in Africa. So we have Ms. Thulile Kanyile, who is an award-winning academic and entrepreneur. She is a lecturer and PhD candidate at Wits University, where she's investigating various immune strategies against HIV-1. She is the co-founder and co-executive director of Nkatuto Edu Propeller, which is an NPO that equips grade 8 to 12 learners in township, rural areas with innovation, research methodology, and entrepreneurial skills. And this is all with the aim to empower them with the tools to solve real society problems. We have Genevieve Thompson, a scientist turned entrepreneur who has founded 2 biotech companies, has published over 30 scientific articles, and has also mentored numerous postgraduate students at MSc and PhD levels. And in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, she played a crucial role in establishing multiple testing laboratories across Africa. So this is the caliber of women that we have on the stage today. And last but not least, we have Dr. Maputi Madiha, an HIV specialist turned public health expert, science and innovation and human capacity enabler. She is the Deputy Director at the Department of Science and Innovation for Emerging Researchers Program, which is aimed at building representative high-level human capital in areas of strategic priorities in the country. So she provides strategic and operational support to the Directorate, including organizing and hosting South African Women in Science Awards. So her career has spanned academic research and research management, and she has worked in institutions such as the National Institute for Communicable Diseases and the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. She's also got more than 15 peer-reviewed research articles in high-impact factor journals, and she is all about empowering emerging researchers. So may I ask that we please give a warm round of applause to our panelists today. Okay, so the aim of this session really is to profile these phenomenal people as examples of what Africa has to offer, and to also inspire mostly the postgraduate students that are coming up after them to say, this is your model, this is what you could look at, and this is what you could look to surpass. So ladies, I'm going to ask that you introduce yourselves and tell us your stories in your own words. Take us through the journey, where it all started, what you do now, what your role is, and how are you contributing to this bioinnovation ecosystem in Africa? Any takers? we will need to hear the stories from each and every one of you. So this one sets the tone for you to tell the people who you are, what you do, what inspired you to get into this field, where it all began.
I'll start.
Okay.
Thanks so much for the lovely introduction. Very generous introduction. I'm really honored to be on stage with you ladies today. We all met a few minutes ago, and it's so incredible to just hear the diverse stories that are represented here today. As Charlotte's already introduced me, my name is Genevieve Thompson. I was an academic for most of my career, and I supervised postgraduate students up until PhD and postdoc level. I decided to take a leap into the private sector about 4 years ago now. It wasn't an easy decision to sort of leave that comfort zone and that career that I'd been in for such a long time, but it was honestly the best decision I've ever made. I absolutely love working in the private sector. It's intense, it's fast-paced, it comes with pros and cons. There's days where you win a lot, but there's also days where you lose. And when it's your own business, the buck stops with you, so when there are tough days there, you do feel them quite a lot. I really do try to celebrate the wins, especially in the early phase of the business, because sometimes they can be few and far between. My primary passion has always been in the molecular biology field, and I really love teaching. So it wasn't an easy decision to leave academia and leave sort of student mentorship. I'm still involved in that area, but not at the same level as you are when you're full-time. So Gene Vantage, we manufacture and develop diagnostic test kits. They're used in multiple different industries, so that's human diagnostics, pathogen profiling, new crop development. It's used in criminal forensics, multiple different industries, so the technology is really agnostic from an applications perspective. I absolutely love what I get to do, and I'm very grateful to be here today. Thank you so much.
So much.
Okay, I think it's on now.
We're in business.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I must thank you guys for coming at 4:30. This is usually when people are knocking off at work. So we really are grateful that you guys have chosen to come and hear our stories. My name is Thulile Kanyile. I am a scientist. I an aspirant academic, I guess, and I lecture at the University of the Witwatersrand. I love lecturing. I love engaging with my students. I lecture mostly introduction to protein biochemistry, to second-year medics, masters in medicine that are specializing in hematology and pathology, and then I also take biomedical engineering second-year students, and that's a really interesting group for me, and I love that group because they come from, they like divergent thinkers, and I'm also able to play a little bit with them. So I introduced entrepreneurship and design thinking. And the reason I did that is because that's pretty much what I do in my nonprofit, which I started with Thandeka Mhlanga in 2016. So we've been doing it for about 6-7 years now. And I think at the beginning we just were frustrated, newly master's graduates at the time, and she had graduated in physics and myself in biophotonics. And one of the things that were concerning us was how the structure of research or the format of research doesn't seem to be user-facing. So a lot of the time you are developing a vaccine or, I don't know, trying to build a resonator for a laser or trying to shape the laser beams or whatever it is, the research you're doing. But you very seldom get asked, is there a market for what's the downstream application, what's the downstream use for this? And in a case where I am doing, for example, vaccine research, no one's asked me if I think people will want to use the vaccine. And from what we've seen from COVID, we realize that a lot of people don't want to use vaccines. And if you are me, the vaccine I'm developing against HIV has 10 shots. So we already know that people don't want to present once, let alone twice, 3, 4 times. But the research questions and the research that we conduct does not have a lens that focuses on the potential user of the intellectual property that we are generating. But a lot of us write in our introductions that this is why we're doing the research, to emancipate people. So Tandega and myself then said, well, what we know and know well is the research methodology process. So we're going to package this research methodology tool and teach it to high school kids. And that's what we sought out to do. We built the curriculum, and it grew in demand as well. And as we interacted more and more with these students, we started to realize that they don't know, there are certain things that they don't know how to do, so they don't know how to read as well. So now you must introduce other programs to support that. But also we realized that these kids were coming up in the research projects that we were making them do. They were coming up with solutions that were in the technology space anyway. So there's a lot of us that like to think we need to go to people and teach them about machine-to-machine learning and predictive model generation, et cetera, and we realized that these young people actually understood it already. So we built in coding and robotics into the program. Then we built in, now that you've sort of come up with a solution or conceptualized a solution, how do you then package it to become a business case? So then we introduce entrepreneurship, and then they have to pitch, and then we select winners. And over the years, we've been very fortunate to also have some investor interest where investors are saying, we actually don't care that this idea comes from a grade 9 pupil. It's a great idea, and we want to put money into it. And now we're finding ourselves in a situation where we've actually built a tech and innovation ecosystem through the education platform, which is the nonprofit. But now we also have a for-profit entity which is packaging itself to distribute and commercialize the entities that come out of these, of the nonprofit itself. So that's in a nutshell, over the years, building a tech and innovation ecosystem and wanting everyone to come on board and support and make us grow it. Thanks.
Excellent. So academia to industry and industry enabling. I like that. Another industry enabler, Dr. Maputi Madira, let's hear from you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is it afternoon? Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. As mentioned, my name is Maputi Madira. I work at the Department of Science and Innovation as a Deputy Director. And I've actually been everywhere, if you think about it, in the National System of Innovation. I started my journey at the National Institute for Communicable Disease, where we're doing mainly HIV research, particularly vaccine research. And I have moved to Agricultural Research Council, where it was a different field, where we were doing animal studies, and I felt misaligned in that. Then I moved back to CSIR, where I went back to HIV research and DP research. And over time, I have developed an interest in research management because I noticed that, okay, we are doing this research and it's funded, but then I wanted to transition to that space where I learn more about research management. That's when I went to the National Research Foundation, and I did more on grants management. And that's where I developed the interest of emerging researchers cohort, where we identify them as the missing middle, where there is no enough support for them to transition from being emerging researchers that just acquired their PhD to moving into being established researchers that are recognized internationally. So if you look at our stats, you can see that there's a gap or a lack of young emerging researchers that are supposed to be playing a role in, being innovators, being, established researchers. So then at some point, I studied at NRF. Obviously, it's a research funding institution, and they offer opportunities for us to study as we work. And through that, I managed to get my PhD in public health. And after acquiring my PhD in public health, I got a job at the Department of Science and Innovation. That's where we do policy making in terms of advising on how to come up with interventions that will help these emerging researchers to transition from where they are to being, well-renowned international researchers. That's where I am at the moment. So what we are doing, like I'm saying, through our agencies, NRF, CSIR, ARC, we are able to provide programs or interventions that are addressing these challenges that we have seen of emerging researchers. And that's where my passion is. And yeah, we are making strides in terms of just transforming the research sphere in this regard, where we are pushing them to, or building a pipeline of researchers that will be internationally recognized. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you so, so much, ladies. So, like I said, the stories would blow you away, so I wasn't lying on that part. I just realized that I forgot to do something at the beginning of the session, because we had some technical glitches at first, and shuffling the chairs around and all of that, I got a bit disoriented. So I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Charlotte Masirumule. I'm a chief scientist at MinTech. I'm based in the health platform. I'm also the director of the Nanotechnology Innovation Center's Biolabels unit at MinTech. And last year, I was featured in this sort of panel, in this session, as a rising star in biotech. And it is a great pleasure for me to host these phenomenal women today. So, thank you so, so much. So ladies, I would like for you to each touch on some of your greatest milestones and achievements over the years, just to showcase to the audience in here and those who are watching online, to give them a sense of what is possible.
Sure, okay, that's an interesting one. So, milestones, I think one of the biggest milestones for me is being able to hire young people. And sort of, when we complain and say young people are not being included in positions and et cetera, so being in a position to be able to hire and groom young people to manage programs, coordinate different programs within the organization. I think that for me has been really great. We're a very lean team of young people, but I think there's like 7, 8 of us that work permanently as part of the team. But also I think a big milestone for us as an organization has been being able to reach more than 30,000 young people across the country, and being able to get some funds for prototyping for 3 projects that were derived by kids, essentially. I think that's been really great. And I think that the awards or the accolades that come as a result of the impact are not necessarily the milestone, but the milestone is really the output and the outcome that comes through, but there are some incredible opportunities, and I think the one that I really am fond of right now that I can think of is getting an endorsement from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation earlier on, I think last month or 2 months ago, so that was really cool.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. We'll give a round of applause for that one.
Oh, for me, it is personal because of I received my PhD and I did it during COVID. So you can imagine juggling research and being a mom and working. So for me, that has been my biggest achievement thus far. In terms of the work that I do, be it at the NRF or at DSI, it's just the fulfillment of seeing the impact that the funding that we offer to researchers, what it does to them. So we see them at being lecturers without their PhDs and them being funded to do their research and they get their PhDs. That for me has been the most amazing thing to experience as somebody who works in these public entities. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. So I think Getting a PhD as a female in science is not a small feat, so I think I have to start with that. That was quite a number of years ago now, but it really was a special moment. I think when you've been studying for such a long time that it feels so far away, but that final moment where you click submit on your thesis and then suddenly you have to plan a new life that you'd never imagined, because you can't imagine life beyond a PhD because it's such a long journey. So that has to be milestone one. Then milestone two, I was actually quite emotional about, was my first MSc student that graduated, and she happened to come from a very big family. She lost her mum quite young, and she was the only one in her family to go to university, the only one to do her honors, and then the only one to finish her MSc. She's a really inspiring young woman, and she now works for SAPS, and I think she's going to be in the criminal forensics laboratory at SAPS, creating change for gender-based violence in South Africa. So that's a big milestone. And then probably number three would be something that was recent with Gene Vantage. We've been working with the client for a long time. We're obviously a 100% South African-based company, proudly South African, but getting to the point where a business is recognized sufficiently to actually start exporting internationally, particularly into Europe or the US, where the big manufacturing facilities are. So that was a big milestone for us to now have a client in Europe in excess of a million tests a year.
I think that's worth an applause. Thank you so Thank you so much, audience. Excellent, excellent work from all three of you. I'm, again, continually inspired. And like I said, truly, when I received your profiles, I said, okay, I thought I was doing a little something, but I'm being challenged to do action. So thank you for being inspirational. So we've spoken about the milestones. And so the theme for the 2023 BioAfrica Convention is biotechnology innovation for Africa's development and security. I want to pose this question to you three ladies. Do you think Africa has what it takes to solve its own problems?
Charlotte, totally. And I'm going to say we do have the capacity, because I work with people who don't have technical skill set, but are able to identify problems and say, this is how I think it should be solved. So if we talk, for example, about sustainability and development, we can have a look at how corruption in the continent disrupts that. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, biotechnology or otherwise, or infrastructure or whatever. But you have someone that's in grade 9 that says, what if we created some kind of an algorithm that enabled transparency in the redistribution of homes? And at the time when this person is saying this, they don't know that they're talking about geo-fencing. They don't know that they're talking about big data. They don't know that they're talking about predictive analysis. They don't know what they're saying. They don't know what is required for them to be able to build the solution they are proposing, but it's on the basis of having the problem. But what we're not doing enough of is highlighting some of the problems that are in the outskirts, some of the problems that are not situated in the peripheral view of us that make the decisions about what research and what problems are solved. So if we get a little bit out, we're going to see more problems, and when we ask people what they think solutions are, the people are going to tell us. And then we can use the resources that we have as people who are skilled, and we can develop targeted solutions. So I think that we have ample capability. We can talk about willpower and political this and that and the other, but capability, sure, yeah, definitely.
Excellent. So engaging the public, hearing them out, and using the tools within our wheelhouse to solve these problems.
I think you pretty much summed it up. We need to use the tools that we have more strategically, in more inclusive ways. What tends to happen is that we come in as the authority over how the problems should be solved, when and how. right? And I think for me, there isn't enough inclusion in broader society for us to be able to really realize the potential of society and its ability to really solve.
That's it. A lot of people agree with, and I agree. So, and I think this is where the sessions like science diplomacy come in, and there could be an interface there, and we could see how we can work it out. So, Maputi and Genevieve, your take on whether Africa has what it takes to solve its own problems, very briefly, please.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the capabilities. I will speak from the perspective of our recently coming SAWISA, the South African Women in Science Awards. We have received amazing applications. When I say amazing applications, I mean the work that our women in science are doing is mind-blowing. I think what is needed is an enabling environment, like Tuli was saying, and also funding to do those research. But I can definitely say that what we have seen so far is really from our emerging researchers, established researchers, and even students. Their projects are targeting exactly what South Africa is facing, the socio-economic challenges that we are facing. What we need to just accelerate is the funding, enabling environment, and we should be able to face any challenges that we are faced as an African continent. Thank you.
Excellent. And I know, Genevieve, you are one of the examples of what is possible when people put their minds to solving our problems, and you have, 35 products in the last how many years now? Just
3
just
years now, 3 years.
So,
It's personal obsession, that's what happens. No, so I think from my side, one of the biggest things I realized, particularly with COVID, was the scientists that were leading the way with a lot of the variant detection. And there were South African scientists at the front of that. I think it got us in trouble sometimes because we couldn't get on planes, and it really affected a lot of people's lives. But I really do believe that that's a testament to the scientific capacity across the whole of Africa. We were at the forefront for a lot of the variant detection with COVID. I'm going to keep it brief and leave it at that. Thank you, Charlotte.
So, we've talked about what's possible, and we know that we have the people to execute, right? But I imagine there are some challenges in this journey of solving problems and using innovation and research to solve these problems. Any significant or notable challenges in each of your journeys that you can share, and be as specific as possible with your examples, just so that we get a sense of, you know, what to expect from the young ones to say, okay, so yes, they are glowing and beautiful and honored today, but they've been through some things and they've overcome.
Charlotte, transforming society is hard, and transforming society is expensive. And when you run a program that goes to the most rural areas,
It's even more so.
the more you go beyond the peripheral, the cosmopolitan economic centers, the more expensive things become. So, for example, you want young people to feel proud about the things that they do. So very simple things. You must have a color printer. You can't have them print their projects in black and white because it increases their confidence to see color. But they don't have a printer, so you must carry one every time you go there. But they might not have electricity, so you must carry a generator. They don't have internet, so you must carry a dongle. They don't have devices, so you must have a mobile research facility. So when people say we must transform society, I do not think we've had an honest conversation about it yet. And because we haven't, programs like this are underfunded. And we can't reach the people that we want to reach because we haven't had honest conversations about transformation. So I don't want to say the problem is money, but I want to say the problem is a lack of understanding for the people who are the recipients of transformation as a process. We have not begun yet to apply design thinking. We talk about it as a theoretical thing, but we haven't yet said, if we are transforming for society, who is it for? What do they want? What do they need? Where are they? How do they feel? Etc., etc. And that for me is the major challenge. The rest you guys will know. It's hard as a woman, funding, getting, pitching, what. But that's the issue.
No, I hear you.
Well, from my side, on a personal note, it has been just balancing the work life and studying, and also I feel that I had fear of the unknown over time, and that really stopped me from, spreading my wings. It's only now that I realize that anything is possible if you put your mind to it. So. In terms of just in the research sphere or where I'm based, I feel that there is still a gap in terms of gender disparity. So the interventions that we are coming up with for emerging researchers are mostly addressing the issue of gender, especially in science and technology, STEM. We are struggling to balance the gender equity. So those are some of the challenges that we are seeing in the space that I am in now. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think from my side, it would be encouraging young women to follow a career in maths and science. I went to quite a small high school, and I was the only girl that did maths and science in my class, so the rest of the team was boys. And I really think that's an area that we need to work on. I think beauty queens are rewarded for being beauty queens more than physicists or chemists, etc., etc. I do see a shift in South Africa. We have had a number of Miss South Africas that have medical degrees, and that is changing, but I really think we need to start young with, they should feel empowered enough to tackle a career in physics or chemistry or molecular biology or engineering, or wherever their passion lies.
Thank you so much for that. And so I absolutely agree on advocating for young women in STEM and starting early, starting in primary school, starting it all the way through to high school, and so that they can build up that confidence as they go through the schooling system. So I have a follow-up for you, Genevieve, specifically, on the challenges of starting and staying in biotech.
It's not easy. You got to refuse not to quit. So I think there's always going to be tough days, and I don't think any industry is difficult. And when you're leading, you do take the hit on the bad days, but you also get to celebrate the good days. As I said earlier, I'm personally obsessed with nucleic acid extractions. I'm personally obsessed with streamlining lab workflows, making things better, cheaper, faster. Designing systems that can fit into environments in Africa where there's no electricity, they don't have automation, they don't have big budgets to buy machines that are going to run 10,000 tests a day like they could do in Europe or the US. So I think following your passion is the biggest one. If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, as they say. It's true. I really love what I do.
Excellent. And that primes my next question then. So how important is it to have a strong sense of self and craft your own career based on your particular design rather than what a person or system prescribes for you?
Well, for me, because I embarked on a personal development journey, I've seen that you have to be intentional about everything that you do. And I've realized that nobody's going to come and save me except myself. So that has kept me going to say that I'm not going to limit myself. I'm going to keep challenging myself until I get to a point where I'm happy with my achievements. Yeah.
I hear you. Tuli? I asked this question because the three of you have what we would call non-traditional careers for scientists, right? You have so many other things that you ventured into just beyond the science track that you initially started with from undergrad. So that's why I'm asking this question.
Sure. So that one is a very interesting question because it's something that's encouraged but very frowned upon. You get punished for being different. a lot more than you win. And that's been my experience. There are certain things that people are going to continuously ask you because you've gone against the grain, so you haven't done this.
Yeah.
Or this is taking too long, or this is da 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 da.
Why don't you do it like this one?
So in being different and not choosing a linear career, you always have to balance the understanding of why you do the things that you do, why they matter. And for me, it's been, it's like, for example, when people say to lead this PhD, and I say to them, the issue is, the PhD is mine, but the work I do at Nkatuto is for so many kids. I'll get to it, I'll finish it. But sometimes I have to choose what is unfavorable and looks to someone else like Tuli's planning to be different, but sometimes it's not a plan to be different. Sometimes it's just I am.
There we go.
And at the point where I realize that I am different, then I have to embrace it and continuously find polite ways to respond to the kind of questions I don't want to answer. Yeah, but I mean, it's an important thing, Charlotte, and I think people being comfortable in their voices, people being comfortable in not speaking when they don't want to speak, when everyone is saying speak up and you feel like you shouldn't speak up, being comfortable to know that I shouldn't speak up is also an important thing. So it's and it takes a long time to learn that, because it's against being bashed. And it's the continuous bashing that gets you to a point where you're saying, ooh, every time I get bashed, then I'm going to get up, and then you start to build a self-confidence that tells you that what's important is what comes and that comes from inside of me.
There we go.
Yeah.
So Charlotte, we met briefly last year, but I've just realized what ties us all together. I think we're all stubborn enough to swim against the stream and not worry too much about what people think. I think that's the central premise. Do what you love. Don't look back. There's always going to be someone that doesn't agree with your decisions or doesn't have the same career as you, but you have to follow your dreams. I think we've all been lucky enough to do that. I must say I'm very lucky to have done that over the past few years.
And I applaud all three of you for being stubborn enough to go after what it is that you want, regardless of what the system says that you should do. That this is the path, you should be an academic, or you should publish, you should, instead of, hey, I can be an entrepreneur, I can be an industry enabler, I can be somewhere between industry and academia, and that's okay. So I applaud you for standing your ground on that one.
Can I comment on that quickly, Charlotte?
Sure.
It's quite interesting. So during my PhD, I had 4 supervisors, which is quite unusual.
that's
to
a
have
lot.
4. And they were all
Too
male.
many opinions. Okay.
All male. And I just so happened that some of them are actually clients now that buy products from Gene
fantastic.
Vantage. And I just remember the day I told them that I was leaving academia and I was going to the private sector and I was making products. The disappointment in leaving academia, that they'd honed this person that was supposed to be a research scientist for the rest of their life. It's
A clone of
interesting.
themselves.
Yes, exactly.
No, I hear- So you've managed to stand your ground and achieve great things, and at such a young age. So how do we create an enabling environment for others to do the same?
I don't know who others is. Is others everyone? Or do you
Others,
want
everyone,
to-
but specifically females.
Specifically females.
Specifically females, because we have a particular brand of challenges that our male counterparts don't have to go through. And we have to be honest about it. It is tougher for us for so many reasons that we will not get into because there's not enough time. But we are all aware of those challenges.
Charlotte, so the education system is interesting because it works on I give, then you give me back. And the education system focuses on concept and technical and and the personal development that you go through is a byproduct of being in the space or encountering an experience, and then that allows you to build a toolkit that then allows you to say, I want to do that, and this is what I'm going to use, etc., etc., etc. But we could be more deliberate about the personal development. And we could be more deliberate from especially the younger ages, because I think that's important. I think that we want to build smart people, and I don't think we focus enough on building people with just beautiful interpersonal skills and the capacity to engage other people. And, I think those are things that happen, as a by-the-way thing.
Sure. Yeah.
And then what we encounter, especially for example, for the young people that I work with, is that when they get to university, the ones that come from the communities that we work, they still are unable to show up. They still are unable to show up as themselves and be the best versions of themselves, because they have not, the target was always to get to university.
Yeah.
The target was never to, find your purpose. And we sit here and we talk about it, but that isn't the target of schools. They're not trying to teach our kids to find their purpose and learn who they are. That's not what they're doing, right? And what happens when you know who you are is that when you have resources, you're able to just plug them, and sometimes you don't even know that you are using it. You just find yourself on the other side of doing something, and everyone is saying that was so great. But it's because you're being yourself, because you've had time to build on who you are, on your interpersonal skills, etc., etc., etc. And then it doesn't become so cumbersome to sit on a stage like this, because you don't have to confront the imposter syndrome you have. You just sit and you're fine.
Brilliant. So, that's it. So, learn who you are, and let's create environments where young people learn who they are early enough and are comfortable enough to self-express and self-actualize. I love that. Genevieve?
So I think shout out to Buy Africa, because I think this really is a great initiative, and I've been here now 3 times, and I think it's so inspiring for young scientists, whether male or female, to see what the potential opportunities are for themselves, their careers, the longer term plans where you can go. You can be an entrepreneur, you can be a scientist. And one of the big things I experienced last year was the training program for the Startup Stadium that happened this weekend prior to Buy Africa. I've been sort of engaging with a lot of small biotech startups right at their early stage. They're kind of mid-PhD. They have this idea. They're not sure they can make it work. Is it commercializable? Can they make money off it, et cetera, et cetera. And every single time I've said to them, go to Buy Africa, go to the AHIA program. I remember going to it last year, and I just sat there and I thought, I wish I had this 5 years ago. I wish I had this a year ago. It really is absolutely phenomenal. You don't realize the tangible resources, the skill sets that you can develop in a very short time period. And that's ignoring the networking that comes with all of that. So I really encourage people to come to the pre-Buy Africa event. It's phenomenal. It really changed my viewpoint. It answered so many questions about my own journey in 2 days.
And thank you so much for saying that. So, and we had, as part of the Buy Africa faculty for the startups, as well as the student chapter, I'm learning a lot myself as we're curating the program and interacting with the social intellectual capital that Africa Bio has. It's enormous, it's impactful, and I encourage you to take part in this. Tomorrow we have a pitching session for the biotech startups. And today we had the Innovation Prize pitch for the students. So these are some of the things that we all can partake in order to create this enabling environment. So Maputi, very specifically for you, how do we then create an environment of inclusivity and diversity in this space. And I pose this because of the work that you do with the emerging researchers and empowering women to move from the stages of being emerging to established and such.
So before I speak about the opportunities that women have through the DSI, I just wanted to say that, to any young woman that is, looking to be an innovator, be a researcher, is knock on doors. Get the information. Don't just sit and wait for information to come to you. Have a curious mind, find out. Opportunities are there. So the opportunities that are available for young women to transition from being emerging researchers to being established researchers, innovators, I think DSI has a lot of opportunities through their agencies. We have the National Research Foundation where you can, get funding from honors level to being a Sachi chair or having a COE, a Center of Excellence. We have ASAF, we have USEF, we have also the CSIR as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for researchers or emerging researchers, young women to excel in their research and actually become established researchers. There's quite a lot that I can't even mention. I mean, we have intention programs that also addresses the issue of gender. Like I'm saying, we are very pertinent about the gender equity. So we set the ministerial targets to address the issue of gender. So there's quite a lot of opportunities that the DSI have through their departments, their agencies. Thanks.
No, wonderful stuff. You heard that young people knock on doors, ask questions, and take the opportunity right now in this convention to do some of that knocking and asking questions. So as we're winding down, we're running towards the end of our session. I wanted to ask each of you, very briefly, what advice would you give to your younger self? We can say teen or early 20s, whatever you figure would be the best pick.
Okay, I can start. I have a list. So the one thing that I've learned is being a good scientist is not enough. And having a great product doesn't count if you can't sell it. So learn that right at the beginning of the entrepreneurial journey. Be selective with your partnerships. I cannot emphasize this enough. When you go into business with someone, it is like a bit of a marriage. You really want to make sure that your visions are aligned. It really does make a big difference in the long term. Be resilient. Refuse to quit. Ensure you're mentally prepared for the bad days. They will come. It's how you deal with them that counts. And then this last one it's a bit of a harsh statement, but I learned it last year at the HERE program. And it really resonated with me, but it was difficult to hear. And they just said, no one cares as much as you about your product.
Sure, no, that's
it's true. No one does. And you need to learn to be able to convert whatever product you're trying to commercialize into a story that the client values. Who is going to pay for your product and why? That's what you need to understand, and that's where the soul comes in. And it took me a long time to adjust my mindset from scientist to entrepreneur to understand that. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, for me, I will say be intentional. Don't give up. Just keep on going despite your challenges. Because for me, we grew up in unfavorable conditions, but we don't look back, we keep going. So I will say be intentional. Have a positive attitude towards life in general, because I think that will keep you going when you are facing challenges, which is something that I can relate to, because if you have a negative attitude towards life, you will struggle because you will face challenges and you are unable to move beyond those challenges because of you don't have a positive attitude towards life. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jeez, I like you guys' answers, I must say. Before I answer it, it's so interesting. Someone said to you, no one cares as much. Someone said to me, so you So it's a non-profit. Just make sure you're building an institution and not a cult. Because people that start non-profit organizations tend to want to build cults, and they tend to want to be celebrated and lauded, and then they never stop working in their non-profits because they are the star of the show. And he says, and they said to me, build institutions, build policies, know what happens when a person falls pregnant, know what happens when you must hire, have KPI strategies, have proper bookkeeping, have proper accounting, have da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, so I learned a lot from that, and I think I would
Excellent
have
advice.
I would tell my younger self that before the time that I learned it. But I think growing up, I think I had a very wrong and right sort of way of approaching situations. You know, this is right and this is how it should be done. You know, and I tended to want to control situations to come out to be a particular way. And I think what I've learned and what I tell my younger self is loosen up a little bit, be wrong. You know?
Excellent.
Yeah, be wrong. Don't be in control all the time. You don't have to be. Don't be the answer to. Don't try to answer all the questions. Sometimes let other people answer the questions. You know. And that's okay. I can see that Dr. Msomi is pointing at his wrist. But yeah, sure, that would be my answer.
Thank you so much. So wrapping it up, be resilient, be intentional, don't give up, and learn from those who have walked the path. Thank you so much for being part of this audience, and let's give a round of applause for our amazing rising stars in biotech. Thank you.
Sounds about right.